Yo, better run the mic, it's the Krewe NFC, the roundtable where the real heads be. Talking NFL, the game we adore, from the touchdowns to the legends and so much more. That booking guy, he's got the stats on lock, dropping knowledge on the field, watching every block. Back and bleeding green, cheering loud and proud. In the sea of cheese, heavy standing out the crowd. I can't hear with the looks and the smarts, breaking down the plays and he does it with heart. Then the Stout, solid like the line. His takes are heavy, his vision's divine. Week by week we break the game down, from every big play to every new clown. Offense, defense, we cover it all, from the springtime drafts to the winner's last call. It's not just a podcast, it's a fan's lifeline, connecting every moment from the vines to the stride. So if you love football, come join the hype. The Krewe NFC Roundtable, we're your type, embracing every team from the east to the west. In the world of pigskin, we only talk to the best. Yeah, we laugh, we argue, we cheer, we boo, but at the end of the day, it's all love, that's true. From the heart of the fans to the field's bright lights, the Krewe NFC got your football nights. So crank up the volume, get ready to dive in. The crew is here, let the discussions begin. NFL world in a whole new flavor. The Krewe NFC Roundtable, your football savior.
We're missing somebody. Here we go. Good morning, gentlemen. Week 7, actually. NFL. Looks like the league's finally taking shape. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on last week's game before we get into this week's? I mean, the Saints kind of got embarrassed.
Embarrassed isn't even the word. I mean, it's like, I think did they even bother showing up? I mean, that was horrendous.
Is it a coaching situation? What's the problem there? They fell off fast. 2 weeks scoring offensive points like crazy, and then nothing. Like totally fell off.
Could be coaching, but also think about this. You know how we always talked about how like the first few weeks of the NFL season is almost like it's almost like still preseason because nobody plays in the preseason, right? So
right.
You're not really getting a good gauge on teams until week 6, week 7, and that's when the true contenders kind of show up. I just think maybe week 1 and 2 for the Saints was like nobody was truly prepared to play them how they should be this time in the year. And then now you're kind of seeing how the Saints team really is. And to be perfectly honest, I think you're going to start seeing guys being offloaded because of that hefty salary cap they're going to have next year.
Oh yeah, they're up against it. I mean, they seem to always find a way to push it along. You know what I mean? They push that money so far all the time. So salary cap is just a monopoly money number anyway, right? But anyway, Stout, I know you got to get out of here early this week. You got some things going on. So let's just talk about some of the games you have going on in the NFC East.
Okay, if you want to.
I mean,
well, we could start off with the Carolina and Washington game, and we could spend about 10 minutes on Carolina's injury report. What we say, 14? I think we figured out 14 people. Even their loss.
They have 14 players on their have a injury status this week.
Yeah, I think their long snapper's out too. So it's getting deep over in Carolina. So
when you have to list a long snapper as a vital position on the injury report, there's something wrong with your team.
Yeah. So it's Carolina. But Washington's biggest injury looks like the questionable, the running back, Brian Robinson. Looks like he will play, but and then you got Tyler Owens is out. Dorrance Armstrong's out. And, they don't have many injuries, and to be honest.
Well, I don't think Carolina had a solid chance. I don't think they had a solid chance this week being fully healthy. Any given Sunday, anyone can win, but, I mean, Carolina's up against it going into Washington to play a quarterback that no one's really been able to figure out since week 1. He's been pretty hot. So I don't know. I mean, Washington's favored by 6, I believe. And I don't think it's that close.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, even if Carolina was healthy, I think, I don't think it would have changed that much with Washington winning this game with how well they're doing down there with that team. So, and
yeah, Sean says that Jonathan Allen being out worries him, but I get that. He's a real sound player on that defense, but why worry? Your offense is clicking right now, and this league is based on offense. Unfortunately for us defensive fans, it's an offensive league, and for Carolina, they're just offensive. I mean, it's just bad.
I mean, the 14 injuries that's terrible. I mean, you're already a terrible team, and then you add that on to it. It's almost like, why even bother anymore? So, I mean, and that's the thing. Does Carolina, with starting off 1-5, do they get rid of their head coach?
You can't. They can't.
I know, but that's the talk.
One of the worst owners next to Jerry Jones. He's one of the worst owners in the league.
No, Jerry Jones is the worst. So we're not going to have this discussion. I'm going to go on a rant. Leave me alone.
But anyway, he is honestly he does nothing to develop talent down there. They try something, it doesn't work, they move on. They try something, doesn't work, they move on. You get a head coach with 1 year's offensive play calling experience this year. They can't move on from him. They got to at least give him 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, then your draft pick gets hurt. I mean, whatever.
Andy Dalton. And that's all you got to say.
Yeah.
But let's go on. What do you got next?
Yeah. Well, we got in the rivalry game between the Eagles and the Giants. The biggest concern that I see in this game right now is for the Giants is their biggest weapon is out on injury report, and that is their punter. He is out. He is hurt. He's not going to – I don't know what the Giants are going to do. The Giants are terrible.
I know this, you being a Cowboys fan taking a shot, but a punter being out could be a big deal for a game. That's field position. You can flip the field with a good punter and change the course of a game, especially if your offense is struggling. You pin their offense deep in the other end, and your defense comes to actually play. But I mean, again, I know you're a Dallas fan, so you got to get your shots in. And
I don't have to take the shots. The Giants fans are doing it for me. I mean, they're pissed. I mean, they're watching their quarterback they paid a crap ton of money to. We had the same problem in Dallas, just constantly throwing interceptions when it's go time. I mean, and so basically, the punter was saving them, giving them help by, I think, at least, pinning them deep a little bit with what they need. But I mean, and then their injury report, they got a couple questionables. Dexter Lawrence is questionable. Brian Burns, their linebacker, is questionable. If they don't play, I think that's a big hurt for the Giants on defense, especially if Dexter Lawrence doesn't play. That's the bright shining light for that defense. I think he's a big boy. He does a lot, I think, for that defense.
Yeah, he's their catalyst. So the Eagles are favored by 3 in this game, and I don't think that's enough. And again, a lot of these point spreads are really low this week. I don't know if you've seen them or looked at them, but Eagles only given 3 here, I think, is something you should watch, because I don't know how the Giants keep pace, especially if the Eagles get off the ground and actually control the ball, running the clock, running the ball, controlling field position. I don't see how this game's close.
Yeah, I don't either. And the Eagles injury report, I mean, basically it's been the same injury report for the past week or so. So, I mean, the same people are still out or on injured reserve. So they're just Darius Slay's the only one that showed up questionable that I seen. But it looks like he's going to play. So I don't know. I don't know about the spread either. Vegas is up to something. That's what I'm thinking. So,
well, I mean, like I said, they're given 3. You normally get 3 being the home team, or you get a field goal to start, but
yeah,
regardless. And we have the Cowboys with the bye. Are they going to do anything?
Yeah, we'll win.
No, I'm being serious. Is there any moves on the horizon for Dallas, or do you think they just stay status quo and hope Dak doesn't throw an interception?
Well, I mean, it's a bye week. We'll lose. I'm just glad I don't have to pick them this week, so I could not make blackjack again because the Cowboys lose for like the 3rd time this season.
Yeah, Brian, you hit blackjack this week.
Yeah.
Well done.
I
I hit blackjack this week because my team wins. Brian, did your team win?
It did.
They did. Wow, weird.
Yeah.
Dallas, did they win?
No, but that's the only news coming out of there is once again is the owner nonstop trying to get a reporter fired for doing his job. Like,
yeah, that was Sean Spencer. They did a real good piece on that on Let's Talk Football, I believe is what it was. Him and his co-host, they were getting into Jerry Jones. It was hilarious.
yeah,
How do you go on a public radio show and have a tirade like that?
It's absolutely amazing to me. It's mind-blowing because of the fact that this is the guy that's also your GM, but yet you're going to be the one that's going to basically threaten to fire a couple of radio personalities when their job is to ask them the questions, right? So listening to all that, I just laughed. I mean, you can ask Stout. I was texting him. I'm just like, you know what? I've got a new video opportunity, and it's going to be called Jerry Jones, the untold story.
yeah. I mean,
Andy speaks. Andy, how you doing up there?
I'm just waiting for you guys to finish with the freshman sophomore team so we can go talk about the varsity.
Oh yeah.
We'll get to the Bucs Monday night game.
But yeah, the whole thing with the Cowboys is Jerry Jones has got to be the centerpiece. And, let's not talk about how we spent $60 million a year on a quarterback that throws interceptions nonstop. And then, he has to have a coach that goes along with whatever he says. So, I mean, it's bad. It ain't going to get any better. I've been saying it for how many years now? I mean, I think I've been saying it since I've known you that, until he's gone, this team's not going to do anything. They'll sell the most jerseys, but I don't know if that's going to be a thing anymore either because people are getting fed up. Like, I'm not buying nothing no more. This is ridiculous. Like,
all right, let's go north.
No.
That wasn't even me.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about some of these battles of the NFC North. Which of you two knuckleheads are going to go first? Bears got a bye, so
yeah,
I guess
Bears will win by 2 touchdowns versus the bye.
Yeah, that I agree.
That's why they're my number 6 pick.
I'll just get it started. Packers take on a Houston Texans team coming into Lambeau Field, and looking at the injury report, if there's a word to say, it's Houston. They have a problem. Lots of defensive people out on this team. This could determine quite a bit how this game could go. However, Houston's offense is also rather good. Green Bay's defense, while they've done well in the takeaways department, they still haven't looked exactly impressive just yet. I'm still waiting on that game where I feel like they are dominating on the defensive side of the ball. The Packers, as of right now, injury report, the only one that I'm seeing is out is Devontae Wyatt, defensive lineman. Otherwise, there was a lot of a couple of questionables and some limited participation, but pretty much it's a healthy squad. they just need to keep rolling. I mean, they're at home. You need to take advantage of that. You got Houston coming outdoors, playing on grass. It'll slow Stroud down a little bit. I mean, I'm pretty confident the Packers can take this one just for the simple fact they're going to take advantage of Houston's injury situation on defense. And then just being at home, getting Houston outside. It'll be, Stroud, CJ Stroud, this could be kind of one of his prove-it games too. I mean, he's been good, but has he gone up into a hostile environment outdoors and win a ball game? And I don't think he has. So this will be a kind of a good test for him to see. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but that's what I'm seeing in this game.
Go ahead and make your thought first.
All right, is this the must-win for Green Bay? I mean, are we there right now? Is this? You got to keep pace, right?
And see, this is why I wanted to talk about this game first, comparative to the big boy game, Lions and Vikings. I think Andy, I think you probably have to agree. I think right now every game's a must-win game as long as Minnesota and Detroit are sitting there reeling off victories, especially Minnesota. If Minnesota wins today and say, Lions lose, Packers lose, I mean, they pretty much have a stranglehold in the division, and it's going to be very tough to overtake. I mean, Andy, do you agree on that?
Basically. So real quick, like with the Packers in Houston, with your little joke, Houston, we have a problem. I just have a little quick observation that's actually kind of interesting. So a wedge of cheese looks like, a space capsule. The moon, which is supposed to be made out of cheese, looks like a big wedge of cheese, right? Or a big circle of cheese, doesn't it? Exactly. Who cares about the Packers? Now, with that being said, yeah, I definitely think that if the Packers need to be able to actually they really need to be able to keep up. And in this particular case, that definitely means a win. However, Houston's going to be coming in. They're going to be going CJ Stroud. I think you guys are actually looking at a little bit differently. This actually gives him more of an opportunity to be a little bit more CJ Stroudy. So he might be able to actually move that pocket. He might be able to throw the ball downfield. Is Green Bay's defense going to be prepared for the potential for an aerial assault? Their offensive line, Houston's offensive line, is not that bad. They do run well enough. They're not going to be putting up 100, 125 yards, but they can effectively actually run the ball, open up the pass. Then you got that, you're right, that big boy game. Now, if by chance the Vikings actually pull this one out, and it's going to be a tough game for sure. I of course picked the Vikings, but if by chance they can actually beat Detroit, even though they're at home, they get that advantage, they're in the driver's seat 100%. And so the Packers absolutely have to win. The Bears absolutely have to win. Detroit's going to have to try to win outright just to be able to get that last spot, that last playoff spot. So Vikings are definitely in the driver's seat, and they actually control their own destiny. So we'll see what ends up happening. But they are at home, so that's an advantage.
Stout, you got thoughts on this game?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think Houston, I think this game Brian's all the points Brian said about the Packers, like this is a must. I think this is a must win for them. But on the other side with Houston, I think this is a good look into that team playing a good caliber team and seeing how well they'll do. And I know they've already had a couple games this season, but I think it's going to be a good matchup just to see for Houston how well CJ Stroud will do in that environment up there. Because basically you go into Green Bay, even a regular season, it's almost like a playoff. For most teams. With the fans getting rowdy and stuff and everything else. So I think this is a must win for Green Bay to stay ahead what they need to in the North. But Houston, on the other end, it's a good opportunity for them to see how they're going to look in that kind of environment for if they make the playoffs. So
playing outside as opposed to playing inside. It's definitely different, but the speed of the game will be a lot more advantageous to Green Bay in this because Houston is such a fast team. They're such their offense is basically predicated by how well they get separation and how well CJ Stroud can roll out and how well he can get outside and run. So playing in grass, like Brian said, should be an advantage for Green Bay. That's basically all I got on that game. Brian, you got anything else you want to add with the Green Bay game since it's your baby?
Just, it's good to hear everybody else's opinion on this. I mean, I do feel like it is a must win just because of the simple fact that, all four teams in the North right now, I mean, you look at it, they all four teams are the top four teams in point differential in the league, not the NFC, the league. These they have the overall best record in the league. I think they said if you would put Chicago and Green Bay in the other divisions, they would be in first place in other divisions. I mean, this division is now it's tough, and it especially when you get into the divisional battles when you're facing your divisional teams. I mean, all those games are just going to be like, whoa, and I wouldn't be surprised if they split. That's why these non-conference games are now really important. So, yeah, I do feel like this is a must-win already, and I'm just glad to see there's agreement with it.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the fact that the divisional games are going to make more of an impact or be more important because we've got a big one right now with Minnesota, Detroit. That's probably huge. The biggest game of the early part of the season, but possibly the biggest game of the year because that can definitely put someone in a stranglehold in that position. Go ahead, Mike.
Before I go, I just want to say this is the game of the week, Jerry.
Oh, my God.
All right.
All right. I'll peace out, boys. I'll see you later. Have a good one.
Later. Good luck, Mike.
Yeah, thanks.
So, quick question now. You got the old black and blue division, the North.
Without the Bucs.
That is true.
And, even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when they were literally going to be, ramming the ball down your throat, whether, do you see the other teams being a little bit more finesse-based? Do you think that the old school is going to end up beating the new school?
Regular season football is different than playoff football. Playoff football is more controlled by the ground game. You're going to see the teams that can lean on their run be more effective in the playoffs. That's why you see a lot of teams going to the dual running back set or dual running backs instead of having one feature back. You'll see two running backs. Come playoff time, you have one healthy back or maybe two healthy backs because they're not having the wear and tear they have at the regular season. But you look at the NFC North and you don't have that bruising running back or that ground game, so to speak.
In the NFC North?
Is that the wrong assessment? Yeah, I mean, I don't see any real great ground game.
Well, I mean, Swift does well enough, but, you have, of course, Montgomery in Detroit.
I mean, you could take Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. I mean, Jacobs has actually looked rather good the last couple games. So,
is it sustainable?
That's just one of, yes. In fact, it'll probably end up getting a little bit better as the offensive line works themselves into a rhythm. Not to mention the fact that you throughout the course of the season, you're going to get your aches and pains and stuff like that. You're going to be able to move people around who are kind of maybe 80%. You're going to be able to do a little bit better with them, as opposed to fully everybody's 100%, which of course in the NFL never happens. But it's just one of those things where, and then you're talking defense. I think the Bears are 1 or 2 in takeaways. Defensively speaking, of course, you have a pounding running game, opens up a little bit of a pass. You get yourself 2 touchdowns, maybe 2 touchdowns and a field goal or 2, and now your defense can go out and beat up everybody. I just see that being more of a solid plan than of course back take with like Kansas City, take with like San Francisco. That's a little bit more, I don't want to say finesse, but they do tend to air it out a little bit more. They do tend to be a little bit different with the ball. Their offense is a little bit but they are playing to Patrick Mahomes' strength, so that's where it gets kind of interesting too.
If the NFC North actually puts two teams into the playoffs, your chances of having a cold weather game outside is really going to increase the chances of the home team. Because it's different playing football in the snow. It's different playing football in the muck. It's different playing football on a hard surface that's not turf. I mean, it's different. It's a different brand of football. And come playoffs, that's why it's so important to be able to run the ball. That's why it's so important to be able to have a good offensive line. That's why the wheel continues to roll. That's football. That's the game.
And then if you're from a warm climate, going into a cold weather game, you're a professional, but still that bites. It really does.
It's hard to play cold weather football. It's not an easy task. So let's get into this Minnesota game, can we?
Yeah.
That's what I thought we were.
I'm down. So you guys were talking about running games and how it's being important. Well, this is the big question is how healthy is Aaron Jones today? Obviously with that hamstring injury, he's been limited in practice. It sounds like he's a go today, just looking at the latest update. Minnesota's going to need him today. I think if you become one-dimensional against the Lions, especially with their defense. Now, granted, flip side, the Lions lost the heartbeat of their defense last week. How are they going to play?
They lose over a sack a game. Do you realize that?
Yeah.
With Hutch out, they are missing a sack a game. The next leading sack, or the sack leader on their team, has 2 sacks. So you're taking 7.5 sacks away from that defense. That's significant. That's not – I can't believe they haven't tried to replace him already. Maybe they have more confidence in who they have behind him, but I still think you got to find someone to replace Hutch.
And that's why you're starting to see – I mean, did you guys notice that Reddick finally signed this morning? And I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that it's happening because between the Max Crosby, one day he says, I want to be a Raider for life. And then the next day he's like, I'm going to play hard for any organization. I just want to win a Super Bowl.
Right. He's not here for a rebuild.
Right. So I do think there's potential movement going on. And I know the Lions are definitely going to be in the middle of it. So.
Yeah, it's. The Riddick deal almost sounds like we're going to sign him to trade him because they do not want to get nothing for him. That's how it sounded to me. It's a short-term deal. He's going to show up to the facilities. Do you put someone in your lineup like that? You don't play someone like that. He's held out for so long. You're basically telling the people on your team that you're not good enough anyway. I mean, how do you play him?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's a great question.
I think it's a sign and trade. I really do. And I know that sounds kind of conspiracy theorist, but I don't know why else you would agree to terms today.
Right. Yeah. It is weird. I just found that interesting because it's like, why now? I mean, I know you're so unhappy and all the news leading up to all of a sudden magically say, oh, I signed. It's like something's going on. So
when's the trade deadline?
Election day.
That is,
I think November 7th.
2 weeks, right? Enough time to get his legs underneath him to pass a physical and to get
November 5th.
traded.
November 5th. Yep. Basically 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now also, but here's another caveat that people don't know about that. Now, when Reddick got traded from the Eagles to the Jets, there was a caveat in the trade where Drew Rosen, or I think what's his name? Is it Rosenhaus is the GM in Philadelphia? He threw it in there that if the Jets were to turn and trade Reddick to an NFC team, that the pick that they got back from, which was originally a 4th round pick, becomes a 2nd round pick.
Yeah, playing chess. You know what I mean?
So, and in terms of Sean Spencer's question on if Cam Akers is active, I'm not seeing anything that says that he's not.
Yeah, I don't know if he is actually going to play today. He's only been there, 5 days now? But he does know the offense. He has been a part of the team in the past. So it's a possibility he plays. I mean, there was a quarterback who played on 2 days' notice. Led the team to a victory, then went to some team in the NFC South and is on a really good run this year. I don't know who it could be. I'm just spitballing here. But so
well, anyways, getting into this game,
right.
I mean, what do you think? I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, I think with this it's indoors, which obviously Detroit plays very well indoors. Detroit's offense has been humming, but Minnesota's defense has been playing great. And then you go to the flip side, Sam Darnold is having one of those revelation years and he's looking good. The offense looks good. And then you got Lions defense who plays gritty. But again, we talked about the injury situation. What injury is going to hurt worse for their teams today? And I think that's really what's going to determine it.
This is what is being overlooked, I think, for Detroit right now is Carlton Davis leads their team in tackles. He's a corner. He's questionable with a quad injury. Having watched Davis play in Tampa, I know he doesn't come back from injury long. Like he'll be back and he'll be gone. He'll be back, he'll be gone. He's off and injured, but the man can play. He's a sound tackler. He's good against the run. That injury, I think, is going to hurt them a lot if he doesn't actually play today. He's listed as questionable, will be a game-time decision. In Minnesota, Patrick Jones, the second, is their outside linebacker. He's questioned with a shoulder injury, but is expected to play. He leads them with 5 sacks. That would be huge if he doesn't play. If you can't get pressure on Jared Goff and he has time to pick that defense apart, I think you might see the Lions' victory today. But it's going to be a close game. It might come down to a field goal.
I'm waiting on Andy. Andy's.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Andy. I've talked myself out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Shut up.
I was actually looking into Cam Akers, and it didn't say anything about him not playing. So, and actually looking at Sean's prediction, if it'll pop up, that is.
Yeah, 35-29. That'd be great for you guys.
That'd
be great for everyone in the
that'd be interesting for
NFC.
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
Like,
No, go ahead.
Oh no! You go ahead. Yeah, I've talked too much.
Oh, I agree.
Anyway,
I'll stop when you're wrong. No, with Detroit actually going in, they do have a hot hand. They might be emotional and stuff like that because they did in fact lose their defensive end. In a pretty gnarly little injury. So Detroit, of course, they still have something to prove. Hey, you know what? We're more than just one player, but we're going to be doing this for them, that kind of thing. And division rival. And let's be honest, nobody likes Minnesota. They're like a redhead stepchild. They're like somebody who's a fan of a NFC, South team that is actually really bad, but they think that they're really good. I'm not mentioning any names or anything.
Anyway,
it's just kind of one of those things. But I just don't see necessarily, Minnesota. I'd like to see Minnesota lose. Don't get me wrong. Points wise, I need them to win, but I can see Detroit pull this one out. And even by a touchdown, might even be less than a touchdown, might be a field goal.
Yeah, this game might come down to, closing minutes of the game. Whoever has the ball last type deal, win by a field goal.
You might actually end up going old school here, too, and actually do running back versus running back. So, you might want to put Montgomery to work big time. You're eating up the clock. You're maybe scoring some points. I mean, that kind of thing.
Do you have him in fantasy? No.
I don't do fantasy football. I played real football.
Okay, I just looked up. Okay, so we're talking, again with the Cam Akers thing. I just looked up the updated depth chart of the Minnesota Vikings as of right now, as they have listed. Aaron Jones is your RB1, Ty Chandler your RB2, Cam Akers RB3.
So yeah, unlikely to play. All right, we have someone wanting to talk about this terrible game in the Super Bowl rematch of the Chiefs and the 49ers. I'll touch on this real quick because this game does not feel like a Super Bowl rematch. Am I wrong? It feels like a Niners team that's still trying to find its way. It feels like Christian McCaffrey may never play again. But it may come down to a kick, right? It may come down. The Chiefs-Niners close game comes down to a field goal. The Niners are on their third place kicker this season. They just signed Carlson from the Green Bay Packers, who is only an 81% place kicker. So, I mean, it's nothing that blows you away. But this game comes down to a kicker. If he misses, are they on the fourth kicker? I mean, what do they do then?
So here's actually kind of an interesting point about that. You got the the Chiefs versus San Francisco in a rematch. I mean, do you really see the Chiefs actually winning this game? It's almost like a retribution kind of a thing. If it was like a legitimately called game, I could definitely see San Francisco pulling it out. Maybe by as much as like 10 points. Who knows? But you know how it goes. I've been sharing those little things, those little vignettes, on to our page and stuff like that. And you see just how egregious some of those.
It's awful. I agree, but I just don't. I don't see how they build this game up. This was supposed to be the game of the week. Like, it's a Super Bowl rematch. I know they were thinking the Chiefs and the Niners both would be on their, same trajectory going towards the playoffs. The Niners might not even make the playoffs this year. I mean, that's a strong possibility.
Yeah. Injuries any given Sunday. And like you said, Christian McCaffrey, who was a big part of their offense, with his knees being as bad as they are, he, as you said, may not play again. It'll be a long road for him to get back. Miles to go, as the poem goes. But, it's just one of those things where for his longevity, he may wish to kind of hang it up, just like Tua. For your longevity's sake, call it a career. But
Tua thought he retired; he just couldn't remember.
That's why nobody likes you.
Well,
but seriously,
you know what? This game, here's how I look at it. To be perfectly honest, do the Chiefs really need to win this game today?
No, but the Niners definitely need to win this game today.
Exactly. So if you're the Chiefs, all you're going to try to do is just, you know what? We have a chance to really throw a knockout punch to a team already, right?
Yeah.
So they just go and play their game. They're good, right? But, turn to San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco, granted, looking at, Jerry brings up all this stuff about Brock Purdy and the analytics and stuff like that. Okay, great. That's great. Here's the thing, though. Brock Purdy isn't, the team. And unfortunately, if his guys aren't playing up to snuff, is he truly the guy that you can count on in a comeback situation if you're down? I mean, think about this. I believe I read something. San Francisco's defense is ranked 15th right now. And this was supposed to be a studly defense. What happened? I just think
bad positions.
I think for the 49ers to salvage the season, especially to hoping, the broken man decides he can come back and play. I honestly think that this is a must-win game for the Niners. Otherwise, things could go south very quickly.
Yeah, I think it's starting to roll downhill as we speak. What happened to Brandon Ayuk? All I heard was Brandon Ayuk's going to be the difference, and the only difference I'm seeing is he's non-existent right now. Are they punishing him? Are they trying to say, hey, you want to hold out? We're not going to get you the ball. I don't know what it is, but it's not good. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you have that caliber of player and he's not making an impact on Sundays. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It's, and especially with a Shanahan offense, you would figure you'd find a ways to get him the ball. And then I'm like you, I'm myth. It's like he is a non-existent player, and you're paying him that kind of money to play like a stud receiver. So
it almost feels like they're punishing him. Like, we'll pay you, but you're going to go out there and we're not going to give you anything. We're going to make you block. We're going to make you run the fly. We're going to make you run the wheel. And we're not going to give you the ball. You're just out there.
Yeah.
Maybe he just doesn't have confidence. Maybe Purdy just doesn't have the confidence in that receiver as of yet. Give it time. He's only been there for a few weeks.
But anyway, Jerry, you got your fun. We talked about your stupid game. So before we go south, I hear this.
You should have opened that before the show goes south. Is how you should have opened that.
Big game, really, for both the Seahawks and the Atlanta Falcons would be the first game we talk about. We already talked about the Panthers, Washington, sort of. Stout went into that a little bit, but with Seattle heading to Atlanta, Atlanta's favored by 3. The Seahawks are down 2 of their top 4 corners in this game. Brown and Woolen are both out with ankle injuries. Their safety, Reed, is out with an ankle injury. It's going to be a tough ask for Seattle to keep up with this. I don't even think I want to say it, but efficient, high-flying Atlanta Falcon offense. I mean, that doesn't even feel right. That just hurts my feelings. But Atlanta's favored by 3 at home, and I think it could be substantially more. What are you guys' thoughts on this one?
Yup.
Yup. No, I agree with it. I first of all, it's always tough to go, be a West Coast team to go play the East Coast team. So you've got that right there. But historically, the Seahawks have always been, but granted that was under Carroll, they always seemed to do pretty well with that, right? But again, you're missing, the defense is missing a couple corners, and you've got an offense that's been playing very well under Kirk Cousins. If they don't, fluster him and get him in situations where he can make mistakes, Cousins is going to hurt you. But do I think this is exactly kind of like one of those blowout games for the Falcons? No. I honestly think it could just be up to a field goal. I looked at the over-under for the matchup. It was 51 points. I think they'll go just short of that, and I think it's just going to be one of those 3-point games that we see. But Falcons win.
Atlanta's been in a ton. I mean, most of their games this year are one possession games, so you're not off with that. Go ahead, Andy.
It just looks like that Justin Simmons is actually going to be playing for Atlanta.
Yeah, Simmons was supposed to be a game-time decision. They gave him
20 minutes ago.
Right on. Yeah. So that's great news.
That's really going to help.
Yeah, he's a playmaker.
There's that lag. That's why when I start talking, I see that you're talking, then I stop, and then because there's a lag on my end. So with Kirk Cousins, remember we were talking about this before. Is it going to be your player? Or is it going to be your scheme? And I think actually, Kirk Cousins being the game manager that he was in Minnesota, I think you actually see that he might actually be a little bit more than just a game manager. Maybe he's a real good game manager, but he actually can get the ball where it needs to be, only because trained professional, all that jazz. So that's why you got the Falcons, who were we'll say subpar last year. Now they're actually a team that you have to actually reckon with when you go into Atlanta, in particular when you go into Atlanta. So with Seattle, of course, being down a couple, I don't necessarily see them coming from that West Coast into Atlanta and actually winning. You got a couple hour, 3 hour time difference, jet lag. You got your offense is not necessarily clicking like it usually is. And you have a defense that's a little bit better than some people actually consider it to be. So I think Atlanta's going to end up pulling this one out.
Yeah,
Probably by
unfortunately, I
it's
agree
less than a
with you.
touchdown, but you pull it out. So
Yeah, with Simmons being back, that's huge because he's a playmaker in the back end of that secondary. Forced 2 fumbles playing against the Bucs. Actually kept them in that game. If that ball isn't fumbled by Bucky Irving, you're looking at a different outcome, and you got the Bucs sitting on top of the NFC South all by themselves instead of them looking up at Atlanta. We've already covered the Panthers in Washington. Now let's get into the game that I have not a great feeling, not a bad feeling, just the odd feeling about this game. Going into Monday night, we got the Baltimore Ravens coming into Raymond James Stadium to face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Ravens are fairly healthy. 2 players out are Ali with an ankle and Harnson with a groin injury. The Bucs, on the other hand, are going to be without their starting cornerback, Jamal Dean, who's battling a hamstring injury. Backup tight end, or not even backup tight end, 2-set tight end. He's not your starter with Payne Durham, and 2 4 and 5 wide receiver and Raheem Jarrett and Johnson at wide receiver being out. They do get Graham Barton back, but I don't know if that's a plus or a minus because Robert Hainsey played really well against New Orleans Saints. They do get him back. Vita Vea, though, is listed questionable again with a hamstring injury. And Rashad White is still listed as questionable with a foot injury. Mike Evans did not practice all week, but is expected to play, so that's a big boost for the Bucs. I don't have a good feeling on this game either way. I think it could go either way. Unfortunately, I think this is one of those games that the Bucs have to have. The Bucs need to pull this game out by all costs. I mean, there's no room for error here. Andy, what are your thoughts on this game? Going, you got a great ground game in Baltimore going against Bucs. Should be the Bucs' strength is their rush defense or their, ground defense.
So that's kind of the interesting part about it, especially with Baltimore. Baltimore's always had that defense. And in this case, I understand that you want to go, running back wise, but let's just go offense versus defense very simply. Is the Bucs offense potent enough without, even like the receiver might be hurt, a lot of hamstrings apparently, but is the Bucs offense going to be well enough to be able to take on that Baltimore defense? The Baltimore defense isn't necessarily as good as they've been in the past for sure, but you still have a couple of good guys out there that your secondary is still strong. Your linebackers are still pretty good. So let me ask you this. Do you see that this offense being able to actually overpower or at least be able to push around, whatever the case might be, the Baltimore Ravens defense?
I honestly think this is going to come down to a style of play here. If the Bucs can come out and play that fast, quick pass offense where you're going to get Chris Godwin with the ball in his hands early, get Mike Evans a couple shots over the top, give Mike Evans a shot outside, let him stay healthy, get out of bounds, keep the contact to a minimum. I think you might see the Bucs actually pass to set up the run and slowly chip away at that Ravens run defense.
Okay, so consequently, do you see the defense for the Bucs being able to stop Lamar Jackson and the things that he can do?
The Bucs are going to need a big game out of Vita Vea. If Vita Vea doesn't play, it's going to be a different outcome completely. But you got Kalijah Kancey and Vita Vea side by side. Then you got Logan Hall, who's playing really well this season, which is a shock to me because I thought he was going to be on the trade block before Week 8. However, you got all 3 of them playing well. You're going to have to you're going to have to protect the middle of that offensive line. So then you've got your edge rush coming from Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who has yet to really step out this year and needs to have a big game, and Yaya Diaby, who's nursing injuries, coming back and playing. But if you can force that pocket to collapse instead of letting him roll out, keep that edge inside and force him to step up into the middle, you might be able to stop both Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But if you get one of them clicking to where the other can offset it, it's going to be a different outcome.
Well, if you have the opportunity to actually stop some of what he's trying to do with these downfield, you have the legs. You have Lamar Jackson's legs that can get you into serious trouble there too. And then you actually had Henry, who's oddly enough a pretty decent pass catcher. So even though he might be a runner for you, he can still go out of the backfield, get you a good 5 to 8 yards. No problem.
100%.
But that's first downs. That's potential for a touchdown. That's potential for being able to keep the Bucs off the field. And so if Vita Vea doesn't play,
you're not going to have that pressure in the middle,
or at least that stoutness in the middle.
I agree. Brian, what are your 2 cents?
Quietly, this is a really good game. Yeah, I mean, I know we pumped up the Minnesota-Detroit game. This is a sneaky great game, in my opinion. Look, both offenses right now look like they're clicking. I mean, Mayfield played out of his mind last week, but that was kind of like he was playing pissed off because of what happened the week before. And then you got Lamar Jackson, who's got a couple 300-yard games in a row during their winning streak. Really, in my opinion, this is what I'm looking at. Can the Bucs establish a run game against the Ravens defense? The weakness in the Ravens defense is their secondary, which bodes well for Baker Mayfield. But in my opinion, if you can establish a decent run game against this Ravens defense, you're going to put up some points. I mean, Washington was able to somehow manage to get points last week. And everybody was questioning, how good is Washington? Well, I think they proved it against the Ravens last week. So if they can do it, the Bucs can do it. And knowing how well the Bucs have been rolling lately with Baker Mayfield, I think this is going to be a great game for him to show off. Now, on the other side, though, can the Bucs stop Derrick Henry? That's the question. The issue. If Derrick Henry goes off again, it's good night. You're not winning this game. Because ever since this winning streak has started and they have used Derrick Henry as the bell cow, all it's done is open up the offense and obviously you can see in the statistics with Lamar Jackson throwing for over 300 yards. If you can't stop him, you're done. You're toast. This could end up being a barn burner, but then again, if you stop the weaknesses, this could be a close game. I could lean either side on this one. I just think just by what I'm looking at from previous weeks, I probably have to go with the Ravens pulling this game out.
Yeah, it's going to come down to whose weakness steps up better. Does that make sense? Who can bring their floor to the ceiling, whoever can do that is going to win this game. If the Bucs can contain Derrick Henry, they're not going to stop him. He's going to get a couple big runs. He's going to have a couple big breakout plays. But if they can contain him and force Lamar Jackson to beat him, I think they can win that game. However, with Jamel Dean being out, you're looking at a second-string corner pushed into the spotlight. You're going to have somebody spy Lamar Jackson or at least shade Lamar Jackson. So then you're looking at maybe Tyke Smith or Antoine Winfield Jr. So now you're taking two safeties that have pass responsibility, having to have them watch the quarterback, which is hard to do when you're at a safety position. It's going to be a tough matchup, but I think if they can slow down Derrick Henry and keep Lamar Jackson within the pocket and force that middle collapse to where they're coming in and keeping him inside and forcing him to step up into the pockets where all the chaos is, I think the Bucs can force some mistakes and win this game. But Brian, you got picks for us this week?
For pick six or for some money?
Your better bets.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Here's a few plays. Take Miami Dolphins +3 against the Colts. Take the Atlanta Falcons -3 against the Seahawks. Take the Washington Commanders -8 over the Panthers. take the over 43.5 in the Raiders-Rams game. And I'll even give you an LA Chargers-Arizona read. I got the Cardinals at plus 2.5.
Dang. That's a big point spread there in Washington. But we got our pick six to get to. We had quite a few winners. Not winners, but let's say people that entered Club 21 this last week. Jackie Santa Croce hit the blackjack. Med Matlock hit the blackjack. Roger Brooks hit the blackjack. So we've had 4 people so far this season hit 21. Where are we going to take it? All right, last week's picks. Brian, like I said earlier in the show, you hit 21.
Heck
I
yeah.
hit 21.
Heck yeah.
Stout would have won if Dallas could actually win the game. If Dallas would have pulled it out, Stout would have hit 21. And Andy, Packers saved him. He hits 19. So
Oh, the Packers
Andy,
saved the Bear fan? Whoa.
he's taken the win 3 times this year so far. I don't know who he's got this
That's why
week.
they only have 1 point, though.
Andy, you're up first, my friend. Who you got?
I'm going to have to go with the Vikings. Now, I can see Detroit actually, beating up on the Vikings a little bit, but I got to go with the Vikings just because. The Kansas City refs over the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be beating up on the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going with the Falcons, the Commanders, the old Finns, and, of course, the Cheeseheads. We're going to go with those guys. They're my number 1. They should be a solid number 2, though.
I knew that was
Stout would
coming.
have been next. Stout would have been next. Mike has the Bills at 6, Cincy at 5, the Eagles at 4, the Washington Commanders at 3, the Ravens at 2, and the Chiefs at 1. Brian, do you want to go or you want me to go since we tied? It's up to you.
I'll go. I'll let you end it.
All right.
So my number 6 will be the Washington Commanders over the Carolina Panthers. My 5 is the Buffalo Bills over the Tennessee Titans. My 4 is Cincinnati Bengals over the Cleveland Stinky Browns. The 2, or my 3, I should say, the LA Rams over the Las Vegas Raiders. My number 2 is the Philadelphia Eagles over the Giants. And my 1 is Green Bay over Houston.
All right. Guess I guess I got to go since I got 21 again. Second time this year. I'm not bragging. I'm not one to brag or say that I'm better than everybody or that I'm great and you guys aren't. Yeah, I've never said any of that. It's all true, but I've never said it. So I got
that was the funny
over
part.
Tennessee. The Bills over Tennessee at 6. Washington over the Carolina Panthers at 5. Philly over the G-Men at 4. This game I was kind of wavering on, but I'm going to take the Cards over the Chargers at 3. Hopefully I can gain some ground there. I got the Rams over the Raiders at 2. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Baltimore Ravens for Monday Night Football. Closing thoughts, my friends? All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
As always, I'd like to thank our wives and families for allowing us to come on here, be idiots, at least for an hour a week. A lot more time goes into it than we actually let on. But I do appreciate that. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. And we will see you all next week.
So, Andy, what are you
I
going to
will
do this
agree.
week?
I will agree that